evening, everyone. Those that are here in the audience and those that are following us on live stream. Tonight's a special meeting. It is take a look at our strategic plan update that's been in process for a bunch of months now to look at some survey results. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll get into the agenda. The meeting is now called. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Approval of the agenda. Second. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, the motion carries. Agenda is approved. Item 2A, Town of Hopeland Strategic Plan Update. Ashley Anderson, Town Manager Chancellor McLaughlin will kick it off, and then we'll go right into the update.
All right, Mayor, I'd like to welcome Ashley Anderson here. We kicked this off a while ago, and something that has been a long time coming for the town. The long-range strategic plan is something that we've been in need of for quite some time, and so Ashley is here to provide us with an update on where we are in the current process. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. It's good to be here again. Tonight, I'm going to close all this extra stuff out on the computer. Oh, can you hear me now? I'd like to remind you again, I did pass out a handout that will be available after the meeting for the public should they make a request. It is face down for you to take notes on the first part of the presentation. I would like to collect those notes at the end. Your personal notes will not be subject to public records. So, just as a reminder, the most important thing a local government can do is make strategic decisions. And how do you make strategic decisions? With good data. And so we've spent the past several months collecting data and analyzing data. And the first part of the data we're going to get to tonight is what I'm going to call your community report card, where we tell you the feedback that we've heard from citizens. But good data leads to informed decisions, which informed decisions are your ultimate transparency tool. You need data to make the informed decisions, and you can only change your behavior as a community, as an individual, as a governing body, and as a town based on data. So we've come up with a centralized way to capture that data so that y'all can make values-based decisions for the future of Hope Mills as we enter the next stage of the strategic plan, which is identifying the priorities and the goals. So you will have a final product that is a strategic plan that encapsulates these goals that y'all identify, and each goal will have a set of initiatives that will be staff-led projects to advance those policy goals that y'all have chosen to pursue. So let's start. I'll break this if I'm moving. Okay. All right, if you can't hear me, let me know. So let's start by going over the what I'm calling the report card. And if you can't, can y'all read this, or would you like me to make it a little bit bigger? Is that better? Okay. All right. So I'm going to go through sort of our responses. We had a total of 253 responses to the survey. That's in-person responses as well as online. I will tell you that some of your citizens put a great deal of time and effort into their responses. You win the award for the longest response that I have ever seen. It starts on one page and it takes up almost an entire other page. And I will also congratulate you, and it was very positive. But so this is going to show you the breakdown of the demographic. Most of the people who responded to the survey came in between the ages of 39 and 73. So that's what you're looking at. 35.2% was 39 to 54, 32.8% was 55 to 73, and then your third place went to the 23 to 38. So your 22 and under and your 74 and over was missing. are lacking in responses. So we like to ask people if they voted in the last election, just so you can gauge where people are in terms of participation. Of the 253 responses, 87.8% of people said yes, they did, which is higher than you would normally see. We also ask people if they currently live in the town, because that's important. You want to make sure Hope Mills is in a really unique position where you have a lot of parks and rec activities that draw people that may not live here, but they participate in the functions of the town. So of the people that responded to the survey, almost 90% of the people live in town. I do think that for the people that do not live in town, if they're utilizing town services to the extent y'all want to be a destination or a point of tourism, their feedback is important too. And if you want me to slow down or speed it up, I can just let me know. All right, so we asked people how long they have lived here. Most of the folks that responded to the survey have been here more than 6 years, which in this day and age could be a lifetime, given all the growth that North Carolina has. But for the most part, your respondents have been here more than 6 years. So we asked people to gauge their own perspective of how well informed they were about what the town was doing to provide services. So how well do they feel like they know what the town does and the services that the town provides? The front runner on that was people said they were somewhat informed. So they kind of know what's going on. Maybe they recognize that their knowledge base on what the town does is limited. So that information helps y'all, gives you context for the rest of the survey answers. These are people that admittedly may not know everything that's going on. I was surprised to see that 25% of people said they were not very informed. So they know. They know. But 15.4% for very informed, that's not too bad either. So we asked folks, how would you rate the town as a place to raise a family? You're good and very good to the front runner at almost 70%. We asked, how would you rate the town as a place for your economic growth and success? You have a little bit more in the acceptable range. So think about that as we talk through some of the different objectives that the town can do to improve that. 21.7% poor. That's not an insignificant amount either. How would you rate the town as a place that you feel a sense of belonging? So your front runner was good at 36%. You can add to that another 18% at very good. So overall, positive. Acceptable at 25% and poor at 17%. I would say I've heard from citizens and council and other members of the Hope Mills community that you struggle with concerns of being transient. So to have such a high response for people feeling a safe as a place of belonging is pretty good. How would you rate the town as a place to retire? Most people said good, acceptable, or very good. Again, very few, pretty consistent with the place of belonging. How would you rate the town as a place to run a business? Again, pretty on target with the rest. Acceptable, good, very good. And in the next phase of when I come back to you, I'll have some more distilled responses that'll kind of show you where I think we've been able to match what we expect with some of the open responses to the open end of the question, where they kind of fit into this, so you'll have an idea of what people mean when they rank it as poor versus very good. How would you rate the town as a place to travel by car? I will tell you that mobility is a really popular theme amongst people we talk to. I am surprised that you got acceptable at 35.6% and good at 30%, because what we heard from everybody is y'all have an infrastructure problem, you have a connectivity problem, you have a mobility problem. But there are 11.1% of people that think it is very good. But you'll notice you do have a much higher reading on poor, and probably the lowest percentage of I don't know, because everybody has an opinion, whether they're drivers or not, on what it is like to travel in Hope Mills by travel by public transportation. This is your highest percentage of folks that responded with poor.
That's no secret.
But that's a common theme too that we heard in the open-ended responses is more opportunities for public transportation, and to the extent that y'all have public transportation services here, the citizens are unaware of them. So this, in terms of the report card, this is where y'all got your worst, probably your worst marks. But again, you have 16% of respondents that said they don't know. But I think that goes to a lack of what public transportation. But that was one of the responses. How would you rate the town as a place to travel by walking? Not inconsistent with the responses to public transportation. 50.6% of the folks said poor. But you have a slightly higher rate at 22.9% is acceptable. But there was a consistent theme throughout the open-ended questions that people had a desire to make Hope Mills a more walkable and bikeable community. And if you have any questions, interrupt me, stop me. I'll try to not make you sick scrolling. How would you rate the town as a place to visit? I mean, there have been a lot of conversations about Hope Mills being a destination place to visit, to shop, to eat, and capitalize on tourism. So this is going to give you an idea where you rank right now in the minds of citizens. Most people have you at acceptable, but your rating for poor outweighs good by almost 5%. How would you rate the town as a place to work? This is a more even spread. Good and acceptable take you to almost 50, a little over 50%. Lots of people said don't know. I don't know if that is because they don't work here. They may have been confused on what the question is asking, because that's your highest percentage of don't know. All right, how would you rate the town as a place to live? 46.2% of the respondents said good. Another 25.7% said very good. 20.2% said acceptable, and only 6% roughly said poor. And that's a pretty positive spread for all the people that don't like the lack of public transportation and how difficult it may be to get around in cars.
Actually, hold on.
Oh, yes.
That really is. That's kind of different
Mhm.
in some of the other graphs. There's a little bit of lack of correlation there.
Well, so as we get more into some of these survey type questions, and then the second part, when we get into the open-ended questions, that will show you where the positives come out. It is clearly not in travel or infrastructure, but the overall tone of the survey and the responses were very good. But part of the due diligence is showing you where people rate these kind of core concepts.
Well, this also highlights quality of life. I mean, that's a significant piece.
All right, so the next question, no talking from staff in the back, but how would you rate the overall enforcement of town codes? 20% of people said they don't know. I'm going to assume that's because they are not offenders and have not had to deal with it. So I would consider that a positive, even though it's designed to be just a qualifier for the types of responses. Because if you got a lot of very goods, you'd have to think you had a lot of code violations there. But I think acceptable, your ratings for acceptable and good are pretty good. You did get a 17.8% for poor. We got some responses in the open-ended questions that I will tell you relate to what people perceive as messy buffers, trash around businesses, things like that, where it's unclear whose responsibility it is to maintain those areas. But we're going to work with staff to take some of the open-ended answers and tie them to these these projections, so they can work to create some initiatives for bridge those gaps. So how would you rate the overall prevention of local crime and neighborhood safety? I think this was very positive. I was a little surprised to see 26.1% said poor. We got some survey responses with some specific target areas, and we're gonna work with staff to make sure that those are addressed.
That's really interesting, 26.1%. Because she does a lot of community policing.
Keep those numbers in mind, for a later slide that we're gonna get to. So how would you rate the overall quality of town activities, including special events? Again, you had a low percentage of don't know, because I think your events and your opportunities for community participation are what one of the things people really love about Hope Mills. And you got a 20% at very good, 32% at good, 27.7% at acceptable. You still have 16% that said 4. Now, I will tell you later in the survey, we asked people how often they participate in events, what events they participate in, so you'll see how the survey kind of builds, but I think it's important to get the context of where the overall ratings are before we get into the details. And again, if you have questions, stop me. So how would you rate the overall quality of town parks? Again, overwhelmingly positive, only 11.9% of people said poor. We had, in the open end of the part of the survey, we had lots of specific requests for things they'd like to see in terms of parks. A greenway connecting all around the lake is probably number 1.
We tried.
How would you rate the overall quality of town recreation facilities? Again, overall positive, with almost 20% at very good, another 38% at good, 25% at acceptable. I will tell you, we had some very specific comments on recreational facilities. Some people want things targeted towards seniors and don't want to ever see a child, and some things want things targeted towards children and don't ever want to see a senior. So it was interesting. But the good news is your survey respondents gave very specific direction on things they like and do not like. Which is why we asked them for specific questions, but we also asked them to rate things on a general scale, which is how these were the parts of the survey where you filled in don't know, poor, acceptable, good, very good. We did not distill any of the one word or open-ended questions into these. These are the numbers your community filled out itself. How would you rate the overall quality of customer service from town employees? Again, mostly very good. You have 14.6% of folks that don't know. I imagine not everybody has the opportunity or the desire to interact with town employees, and sometimes that's a good thing, right? You don't want to see code enforcement knocking on your door. But I would say that's overall really positive. How would you rate the overall quality of downtown Hope Mills? 37.1% of respondents said poor. Most likely based on the open-ended responses, they had a hard time identifying what downtown Hope Mills, where that is. 33.2% said acceptable, but this is more leaning towards a negative for the town. How would you rate the overall quality of fire services? Again, very positive. That might be one of the highest very goods that you got in terms of almost 32%. And 38% at good, a very low rating at 2.8, 9.9 in terms of people.
Chief, look at that 2.8 up there. That's pretty doggone good.
I think they filled that piece out.
Go ahead.
No, they do a great
Yes,
job.
How many, was it 254 citizens total?
253.
53, okay. I'm just trying to do the math.
And I can give you specific numbers of what each percentage, how many that equals.
Well, that other
Just don't
one-
ask me to do that math right
Well,
now.
that's why I was like, that other one was like 7 people.
Yeah.
Said it was 4.
Yeah, so you gotta take it with a grain of salt. And when the final plan in the appendices, it will break down 32% equals, because your data is only as good as the people that respond. You have a large portion of the community that did not respond. Unfortunately, that is very common. But you can only do what you can with the data you're given. And remember, I am just the messenger. So to the extent that these numbers are disappointing or upsetting, don't shoot me. How would you rate the overall quality of maintenance of town-owned buildings and streets? Again, predominantly positive, but you've got 23.3% of people that said poor. I will tell you, some people in their responses were very specific on which streets they think need more attention. And we will bring that to the appropriate staff's attention. How would you rate the overall quality of police services? Again, overwhelmingly positive. I would suspect the 11.9% of people who responded have had a negative experience with the police. So one person did respond when we asked what the town's theme song should be, that it should be the theme song for Bad Boys. Perhaps they chose poor here. But overall, really, really positive. How would you rate the overall quality of services provided by the town? Again, really positive. I mean, good, acceptable, very good. Admittedly, your respondents earlier in the survey had said some people don't even know what the town does. So for those who felt like they did, and again, you see you have 7.1% of people that said they just don't know. How would you rate the overall quality of sewer and stormwater management? I was shocked that you didn't have more people say they don't know, because a lot of people don't understand the concept of stormwater, period. So to receive the marks that you did for acceptable, good, and very good, I would say is really positive. How would you rate the overall quality of traffic flow and congestion management? Not surprisingly, 57% of people said poor.
I'm shocked it's not higher than that. I'm really,
Well,
acceptable 24%.
it tells you a little bit about what the threshold for acceptable is. Often you'll find folks that, acceptable is, can I drive on it? So some people have a low bar for acceptable, and unfortunately there's not a good qualifier for that in the survey system. How would you rate your ability to access town services? So this includes access to town employees, information on the website. Are people responsive? And again, overall positive. In your marks were very good. If you'll notice, they vary enough that I'm certain some people just went through and checked, because but I will tell you, in looking at the handwritten surveys, it was not as common as you would think. So people had a different response. How would you rate your ability to report an issue in your neighborhood or community? Again, we've got a pretty even spread here. So people gave some thought to this, and we got some suggestions in the open-ended survey that we'll talk about later. A lot of people didn't know, you can assume maybe they have not had an issue they'd like to report, but almost 20% said poor. Most people said acceptable, and again, who knows what the baseline for acceptable is. All right, so everybody has an opinion. Let's see how often they've taken their opinion to a public official at any level of government to share their opinions on these. So we asked, in the past 6 months, have you contacted or visited a public official at any level of government to express your opinion? Almost 30% of respondents said yes, but 72% of people said no. So they have opinions on these things, and some people have lots of opinions, but they're not taking them to y'all as public officials on any level, and that would include elected officials, appointed officials as well. So that presents an opportunity to ask, why not? Do they not know where to reach us, how to contact us? How are we marketing our availability? We also asked, in the past 6 months, have you volunteered for a town event? Not surprisingly, almost 75% of people said no, but you had 25% of people that said yes. It is easy to criticize events until you have been instrumental in facilitating one. So we wanted to kind of gauge people's inside knowledge there. We asked, in the past 6 months, have you watched or attended a public meeting such as the Board of Commissioners meeting? Almost 36% of people said yes, and 64% of people said no.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's really interesting, because I think when we look at the numbers on like YouTube of how many people watch it, how many people actually attend, that doesn't seem accurate.
Well, again, this is just based on the people who responded. This is geared towards the people who filled out the survey. I mean, I'm sure your viewership is much higher. Or maybe it's not. responded to the survey were in the age bracket of 39 to 54, 33% were in the age bracket of 55 to 73, and 25% were 23 to 38. So this shows where the breakdown is. Most people are participating in a variety of recreational activities. But they do not track exactly with your age-targeted demographics from the first slide. Right. So we asked people, in their opinion, what town government services were the most important in our community. So we will go in the bottom to the top. The winner was providing emergency response services like fire, dispatch, and ambulance. At 59% of people said they thought that was the most important service that the town provided. Second was 50% at providing a police presence to prevent local crime and improve neighborhood safety. Almost 40% of people said the town's most important service was maintaining and improving parks and access to open space. 36% of people felt like it was managing traffic flow, congestion, and speeding on major Hope Mills streets. 35% said it's maintaining and improving infrastructure, buildings, streets, and sidewalks. 32% said providing community events and opportunities like recreation leagues and cultural events. 20% of people said creating and maintaining a vibrant downtown for residents and community members. 17% said balancing community engagement opportunities for residents to contribute to, I think it said, the overall development of Hope Mills. 8% was enforcing town codes, ordinance, and laws, and 2% was creating more job opportunities and supporting local businesses. What I will tell you about the slide that is really unique is in the open-ended survey, creating more job opportunities, bringing in more retail of a certain nature, and supporting local businesses was a predominant theme that does not match the 2% here. So it's interesting when you ask people to tell you what they want in words versus to mark what they think the town's function is on a survey. For example, we heard responses that the town could do more to entice new businesses or promote certain types of businesses or to support local businesses, more to encourage citizens to support local businesses. That is not reflected in the 2% here. But again, it's asking people to look at things in a vacuum of what kind of businesses do you want, or what do you think Hope Mills needs more of, and the answers are predominantly business-oriented versus what do you think the most important government services are. All right, so we also asked people what barriers prevent you from engaging with the town. And so this will correspond with, have you been to a meeting, do you volunteer for town events, and this will tell you why not. Only 1% of folks said there's a language or accessibility barrier. 5% of people felt like local government did not impact them. 17% of people said complexity of the government process. Almost 30% of people said lack of trust in local government. But that gives an opportunity to distill what that means and ask some questions about how that can be improved. Almost 40% of people said difficulty in finding information. As someone who has, as part of my job, was to scour your website, scour the information y'all are putting out about services and recreational opportunities, I believe the information is there. It can be difficult to find, so that presents an opportunity for y'all to figure out what people want to know and how to channel people to the right place. 44% of people said scheduling conflicts or lack of time. You can't do anything about lack of time. If I knew how to create more time in the day, I would be a very popular lady. But scheduling conflicts, you can do something about. Ask people what time they'd like to do another survey. Ask people what time they want to see. What events do you feel like you can't participate in? So if you're expecting a bigger turnout and there isn't, again, remember, this is only a snapshot of people that responded to the survey. Again, what barriers, if any, prevent you from attending town events and activities? 6% of folks said cost of attendance. So only y'all know what your events you charge for, and I don't know if that is cost of purchasing things at the event. I don't know if that is cost to attend the event. 8% said transportation issues that could be resolved by a more walkable community or public transportation. 17% said safety concerns. Your police ranked very high at 50% of being an important one of the most important government functions. That doesn't track, but that's a pretty high number to say safety concerns. 19% said lack of interest, so you've got to appreciate people's honesty. Again, you have another 47% here with scheduling conflicts, and 55% with lack of information about events.
Hold up,
Yes.
Commissioner Scroll.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
When was this survey completed?
May 16th?
We started in April.
Because I
Was it
trying to
late
see
May?
ultimately if this coincided with the issues at like Festival Park and the shootings in there, and maybe they,
When were they?
4th of July?
No, this is.
And
This
that's
was
why-
done before then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
this was
why.
before then, so your numbers would probably look
The
much
shooting was-
different now.
The shooting was on Dogwood Festival.
That's right,
Yeah.
Dogwood Festival, so it would have coincided with it.
Okay.
You know, Ashley, with this slide here, that 55%, the lack of information, you're starting to, for me, I'm starting to see a trend of communication in a lot of these slides. And that one right there definitely points in that direction.
And we will talk about how to turn that trend into an opportunity. So we've also asked, what events would you like to see more of? Senior activities, 30%, cultural and heritage celebrations, 36%, special events, 57%, and 59% of folks want to see more recreational activities.
We're trying.
Yeah, man. We're trying.
We thought it was good to ask people where are they getting information about the town programs and services. So this is going to contextualize the I don't knows lack of information. 70% of people are getting it from your website, social media, and newsletters. 43% of folks are getting it from word of mouth. And word of mouth is no different than a game of telephone. So who knows, at times, maybe that corresponds to some of the negative responses on the earlier threads. 30% are going through social media influencers, and 23% are going through local news outlets. But over town facilitated news outlets is the primary source. And that's pretty high. All right. So that is the end of the report card. Do y'all have any questions or want me to go back to a slide? I'm going to leave it up so as we get into the open-ended questions, we can talk more about that.
That's good.
All right, let me get the microphone back. Okay, so earlier I handed out a worksheet that I asked you to keep turned over so you wouldn't be distracted during the report card. If you did take any notes, I'd like to have those back at the end just so I can incorporate your feedback on how you feel like this matches what y'all identified as problem areas and priorities several months ago. Okay, so what you have before you is a executive brief going over the open-ended questions that were asked in the survey. These do not go over all the specific responses, although I will highlight some of them, but it's going to identify the themes, the tones, and the trends that were pervasive throughout. And to the extent that we cover an area that you want to go back and look at one of the report card slides, let me know, so I'll keep this up here. So a very common question is, what is one word, and we wanted people to be very specific on one word that describes the town. The
Ashley,
overall.
can we turn these over?
Oh yes, please turn it over, take
I
notes.
think we're gonna wait.
So if you think something doesn't track, write it down, and we can use that to distill the information a little bit more. So the overall tone of the responses were warm, proud, small town was mentioned a tremendous amount of times, home came up a lot, and peaceful, which is ironic given that people have said they don't feel safe. So again, you have to look at the big picture. So we've identified some potential actions. You can emphasize and center a brand, which I know y'all don't have a defined brand, but this is a good opportunity to work towards that, and should you decide to move towards that in the future, you have some good basis for doing that. But keep your messaging on small town pride, a sense of belonging, that came up a lot, and your ability to protect your neighborhood character and design standards as growth pans out. We asked what the town's greatest strength was, and we have lots of good answers, but most of what we heard echoed what we had heard from y'all, the people. That is really the greatest strength. Your community, you've had been very fortunate to foster a small town community feel, which is difficult for a town as large as y'all are. At 18,000 plus people now, that is not an easy feat. So we got a small town community feel with strong parks and recreational opportunities as well as natural amenities. The lake came up a lot. Citizens expressed civic pride and affinity for Hope Mills' identity as a small town. We talked through some specific actions. I don't want to focus on the actions. I want to focus more on what we heard, because the actions we're going to distill in some later workshops. What is the town's greatest weakness? Not surprising, traffic and congestion were at the top of the list, specifically on what people view as the main corridor. I will tell you, I think you have a split in your community of what the main corridor is, based on some of those descriptions. That it feels like it is geared more towards we use the term auto-oriented, it's geared more towards cars than people, which is surprising given that people was the focus of y'all's greatest strength. Limited dining options came up a bunch. There was an overwhelming request for a steakhouse. Some people have given more specific things, and you'll get all of those details different. We're just hitting the high levels, but I'm telling you, people want a steakhouse. More dining options.
I'm one of them.
Yes. There was a lack of Main Street. Where is Main Street? Where is downtown? Can we have a place that's inviting? Walkability, walkable destinations throughout the community. So that is the overall tone of what we heard in response to the open-ended question.
Actually.
Yes.
If I was to ask 10 people today at Walmart to tell me, where's downtown Hope Mills? What do you think they'd say? If I just randomly picked out 10 people at Walmart, what do you think they'd say? Where's downtown Hope Mills?
Based on the survey responses, I think people would either say the ball fields and the golf course or the lake.
Amen.
Yeah.
But you can't
Probably-
have two downtowns.
Probably the lake corridor, right there, because Trade Street is tucked in the back. And a lot of folks don't know about Trade Street. They go
Well-
up and down past the lake, and they think, well, this may be what's called downtown Hope Mills. So that's kind of why I asked that question. You know, out of 10 people, what do you think they would say? All right, that's just me.
So we asked people what kind of businesses you would like to see in the town. When we talked with y'all earlier this year, you identified more retail opportunities. We needed different types of businesses. Your citizens are eager for more businesses and they're eager for a different caliber of business. They want more boutique retail. They want more craft store came up a lot. Some people were even so kind to tell what kind of craft stores they wanted. But your citizens know what they want. Again, the top of the retail chain was a sit-down restaurant and a range of restaurants, including some high-end shopping, some higher-end places to eat, a nice place to take someone to dinner if someone's coming to visit. Local shops, several survey respondents want shops where they feel like spending their money is impacting the community or a family. I want to know my money is benefiting somebody other than a big box chain. So that was the desire for local shops and family-friendly entertainment. We put these ice skating and skate parks came up a lot. Skate rink came up a lot. The desire for different grocery stores came up. Everything from an Aldi's to a Publix. So people want more restaurants, more places to eat, and they want the option to shop at a variety of different places.
Actually, when they say more places to eat, they want sit-down
Yes,
restaurants to eat.
sit down, lots of comments. I don't care, just less chains, less fast food, more healthy options from places to eat and places to buy food.
Okay.
Someone requested a butcher.
Okay.
I mean, the quality of responses you got is very detailed. It's not just more businesses, I mean, they were very specific. The next phase of this will get into kind of what those themes were. But like I said, skating rink is a big one.
Wow.
Okay.
Pool is a big one. So what is the town missing? So people identified early in the survey that they feel like small town and your citizens are your greatest strength. And they are happy to hone in on hometown and small town pride and the sense of community, but they do not feel like they have the ability to express that sense of community within Hope Mills. Which is odd, but this is what we heard. Requests for more gathering places, a traditional downtown, more friendly, family-oriented activities. They want a public pool, more green spaces, more connectivity, more trails, and a stronger town center was a prevailing theme. As well as more mobility options. Bike lanes were addressed a lot, not ironically by people who qualify themselves as, I'm not a biker, but I see bikers that don't have enough space.
Actually, what do you think their perception or definition of a stronger town center is?
I think there is no, just like you asked, if you surveyed 10 people in Walmart, where is downtown Hope Mills? I think you have a split based on the survey responses, and so a place that people could identify as the town center and a gathering spot. Right now, I think the lake is functioning as that, but people have raised concerns about access to the lake. It's not easily you're not able to walk there easily from all parts of town. When you get there, you can only walk around part of it. They want a greenway that goes all the way around the lake. They'd like to see Trade Street revitalized with some opportunities for public access to go from Trade Street to the lake easily and safely.
Comes back to that definition of what is downtown.
But you also had a big cry out for recreational opportunities, a senior center, a soccer came up a lot, and I thought y'all were a baseball town. I know you are a baseball town,
We
but
are,
soccer
soccer
came
is
up
too.
a lot. People had lots of different ideas on how to utilize spaces like the golf course and different parks and rec facilities. And again, that is when we get into the distilled version, but your citizens had lots of creative ideas for those spaces.
That's good to hear.
Yes, so if you ask people what you want, sometimes be careful what you wish for, but they had very specific ideas. So we had two questions that people either loved or they hated, and we got, the next one is one of them. If you won the lottery, you had to spend the winnings on something for the town, what would you buy? One person did say they would pay off all the town's debt, which I thought was very generous.
We'll
But
take
thanks to Drew, you don't have a lot of town debt, so that leaves extra money to spend things on.
Did you get the IP address?
Yes. That was a handwritten survey.
Verbal binding.
Yes. But your big ideas for this really cluster around Parks and Rec. People want, and some of these you have to realize are not within the town's ability to provide. And if they were, they make more sense for a regional partnership. But a water park, a sports complex, a rec center, specifically soccer, a baseball facility that you don't have to travel out of town to, a lake boardwalk, lake trails, specifically connecting all around the lake. People, again, expressed a desire for amenities, more family-oriented amenities, and regional visitors. There was a significant amount of respondents that said they want arts and cultural avenues, whether that is a theater, or an arts council, and something regional. There were lots of respondents that said they wanted a cultural center. I'm not sure what, I think everybody has a different idea of what that means, but it came up enough that it was significant to mention as a trend. So, the next page distills these down into where I mentioned the specific team terms. So what is the one word that describes the town? Theme, small town, growing, peaceful, home, nice. what is the town's greatest strengths? Greatest weaknesses? This might be reprinted twice. Okay. If the town had a theme song, what would it be? We had some really negative responses to this, mostly in response to why would you ask this question? But I thought we got one of the most insightful, some of the most insightful responses, which were, "Don't Stop Believing" was a top contender, "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," "We Are Family," "Eye of the Tiger," "Born in the USA," "Small Town USA," and "Happy." And you had one citizen who responded with a lyric that they had written when they moved here to Hope Mills. And I printed this, but I'm going to read it into the record. It said, "Hope lives in Hope Mills, where mercy flows like a stream, hearts are healed, prayers are real, and love is more than a dream. We're building more than houses here, we're building on God's will. Oh, hope lives, yes, hope lives in Hope Mills," which I thought was really insightful. It was very positive, and that shows you the quality of response that you got on some of these. Again, just a different way to look at it. If you won the lottery and had to spend the winnings on something for the town, the Lake Boardwalk, walking paths. Some people did mention homelessness outreach, which I know you have some here, but it came up a lot. And when we were doing the in-person surveys, that was something that almost every generation mentioned. We have a homeless issue here. We need to be addressing it more. Police officers came up a lot as well. So these are the themes. That's your report card on how, that was your report card on how things are going. Do y'all have any questions? You ready to kind of launch into what the next steps are? Staff have any questions?
Ashley, I tell you, I go back and I look for, I'm a correlation guy, so I try to connect dots. The one word that describes the town, broadly positive, that's reflected in the slides. And then you look at what is the town's greatest strength, again, positive. So we're doing a heck of a lot of things right by these results.
Everything was very positive, and to the extent that there were negatives, they center around lack of communication or lack of messaging. And this survey and this plan helps you identify where those weaknesses are. I think it is not always lack of what you're providing, but people's lack of knowledge of how you're providing it and where you're providing it and how they can access that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
What's the percentage of respondents did you have from the town?
So only 253 people responded.
And so divide the 18,000 into that, and that's your percentage.
1.4.
How much?
1.4.
Can't blame her for that.
I can't control the number of people that respond, but of the people that do respond, typically those are folks that are interested and engaged in the community. But that in and of itself is something to look at. What are our community engagement efforts? How can we make this better? Why didn't people participate in this more? And that's something.
That's one opportunity there, is why people didn't participate in the survey.
Well,
I did.
one thing I will add is about 300 is our average. I was just talking to Parks and Rec Director Marco Morrison, 200 and how many?
53.
That's still a lot. I think with the cultural arts survey we're doing with a mirror, where are we at now with that one?
I think it was at 111 today, but it was only 50 something last week.
Yeah, so 200 and that number is still a lot, but we average around 3 and some change.
And
So I don't want people to think that we typically get 10,000 responses on surveys in a town of about 18,000 people.
almost 100 surveys, if not more, were handwritten and had lengthy, even if the question was, I don't know, poor, good, or bad, fill in the bubble. If they had an opinion they thought could qualify, they wrote a lengthy, thoughtful response. And we'll go through those in a different setting. But you had, I think, a great response. And the responses you got were not run-of-the-mill, they were serious and detailed and very thoughtful.
So actually,
Yes.
well, I think the people are not saying they want the town to stop
Some people, there was several respondents that said they want the town to catch up to 2025.
Well, you can see that, you know, in this one question, what is the town missing? The tone is forward-looking and largely positive. That tells us clearly that what we're doing now is in the right direction. And we build on this strategic plan. That's why we're doing it. To identify the opportunities, celebrate the strengths that we're doing. Go ahead.
Now, for some of those, like, answers you had,
Yes.
like, with what the town is missing and stuff like that, do you have, like, percentages or numbers of how many people said, like, senior center, or how many said,
Yes.
Swimming pool.
Not with me, but I can provide you with that information. And some of them we had to distill down where someone would put a specific restaurant name, but we put that in restaurant, and then restaurant is broken down to what type. Which, if that is a objective or a goal y'all chose to identify and move forward, you would want to use this to contact someone to do a retail marketing strategy. But what is the town missing centers around public transportation, more recreational opportunities, more family-oriented places, and a downtown.
Yeah, I think that's accurate.
It's very consistent with what y'all thought people were gonna say, or what y'all identified in your own visioning sessions, which is good, because if it was way off, then you have a different problem. I think based on my conversations with y'all individually and collectively, you have a good pulse on the town's heartbeat and what they want.
Well, you know, actually, this really is in line with different things that people tell us in person. You know, it really is. It's, you know, we know about traffic, we know about traffic congestion, we know about the streets. We know, because, I mean, we travel on the same streets too. I mean, that's how we get around, on the same streets. We know about recreational opportunities. That's why we've championed so hard for them. We really, really have. I was telling somebody this past week about how we have really pushed hard for additional recreational opportunities, because we know that that's needed here in Hope Mills. We just didn't get the funding this year to do it. We have the right plan. We're ready to go. I mean, we just need a shovel. And that's part of the money. Senior Citizen Center, we identified that. We know that. But some of the things that I saw in here too, when I looked at on this back piece, you know, sports complex, yeah. Rec center, yeah. I see a lake boardwalk. I don't think I've heard a lot about a lake boardwalk, but
There's a couple of those responses in here that people want to see activities they can do at the lake. When they get there, they want a boardwalk. I think I would tie that in with the greenway connecting.
okay.
The responses were more targeted to what do people do when they get here, when they move here, the people that live here. So it was very focused on recreational and business opportunities for the people that live here, things to do in Hope Mills. It was very inviting. It was not, please don't move here, we don't need more growth. It wasn't even about there were some comments about controlled and managed growth, but they were overwhelmed by business opportunities and requests for recreational and cultural organizations and opportunities. But overall, it was very positive.
Any other comments from the board?
Do you want to go back to anything in the slideshow, the report card?
Anybody want to see anything else?
If I can just add, I want everybody to listen to the context of it. I'm going to go through a couple things that we just did, what we're doing now. Hear about more activities at the lake. We just had a presentation from the lake, from the East Group, for the complete redesign of the lake park after you guys acquired additional property. You hear about more retail. I'm not sure if you realized at the last board meeting, you just rezoned the remaining 80 acres of Camden Commons to all commercial. commercial development in Hope Mills is gonna bring the retail. It's gonna bring the boutique things. It's gonna bring some of the things that the sit-down restaurants and things of that nature. So I want people to understand that we have a lot of things moving forward that's positive. This was a survey that was done tied to a strategic plan. We're here presenting it. There are a lot of moving parts that we're implementing, and with all of that growth, we also know about 5 major DOT infrastructure projects currently either under construction or in design, getting ready to start construction. So I do think the future, at least the short-term future of the town, is very positive. We just have to keep moving in the positive direction.
Actually, when I see the comments pool, swimming pool, I don't know if they mean outside, inside, aquatic center. I'm not sure what that definition looks like.
So the response, well, some of them were specific. There were some responses asking for an aquatic center. There were some folks that wanted a pool in the senior center. There were some folks that wanted a multi-generational community center with a pool. There were some people that just wanted access to a public pool near their neighborhood. There were people who swim in the lake and they love that. There are people who are not nature people and who have concerns about swimming in the lake. But pool came up a lot.
I'm sure there were some that wanted adult pool only.
Yes.
I'm sure there were, meaning no kids, no seniors. I'm sure there were some adults that didn't want kids. But I wanted to highlight something that is an opportunity. I'm a regional guy, and I think everybody knows I live regional. Last year, now let me back up. For years, there's been a huge request for a regional aquatic center. I know I have championed that request for years, an aquatic center. Finally, last year, Cumberland County Board of Commissioner Chairman Glenn Adams, finally put together a steering committee to look at a regional aquatic center. That kind of hit the shelf until the new Board of Commissioners came in, and last week, the new commissioner, chair, Kurt Deviere, is now putting together a steering committee. Our first meeting is August 29th. I was going to talk about this during my comments in the regular meeting at 7, which I will again. But the first steering committee will be August the 29th. I think it's going to be down at the courthouse, and the major stakeholders of the community, the same group that Glenn Adams wanted to bring to the table, those stakeholders will come to the table to at least begin the conversation about a regional aquatic center in Cumberland County. And it will be much larger than the one that's in Hope County. It's a huge initiative. It really, truly, truly is. We have a lot of high school swim teams here in Cumberland County that would really greatly benefit from the aquatic center, along with adults, children, senior citizens. I mean, that is a initiative that if we could bring that here, how it would really enhance the quality of life. And that doesn't even account for the thousands of military members and their families on the Fort Bragg reservation that would enjoy that as well. And then we have to look at our surrounding counties. So, and I'm sure that none of this information was known to, before the survey was taken. So that is something that's at least being started. I don't know about the funding piece. This is another initiative that is a need for the community, but it's going to require funding. And it probably will come from different sources. But I just wanted to share that piece. So what else we got? Recreation. The big buckets. Go over the big buckets again.
Retail.
Retail.
Boutique retail, destination retail, a range of retail from more higher end to more everyday, craft stores, less chain restaurants, healthier restaurants, a steakhouse, sit-down restaurants, different opportunities for recreation from a pool to a skating rink, more connectivity through your greenways, something that is more walkable.
Branding.
Yeah, I think you have an opportunity to work on your branding here too, and the citizens have done a very good job of laying the groundwork for that.
Skating rink, that's something new. I don't think we,
It's nice to have, I just think when we start talking about bigger things, people freak out, but it's the second largest municipality in the county, and it is time for us to have things like that, and it's growing. People are coming here with families, with children, they want something to do. We just lost our Surge, was it Surge? Yeah.
yeah.
So
Surge.
people are looking for things to do with their family, so it's not surprising.
So one response in particular, since you mentioned trampoline park, said, can we have something other than a trampoline park or something for physical activity? What about arts and sciences? And another prevailing theme were cultural arts, opportunities for civic engagement, an arts council, theaters, things like that.
We have it.
Go ahead.
We have it, it's just not, widely or advertised to the best of our abilities, so struggle.
And that helps you connect the dots in terms of misinformation, especially looking at the report card and looking at some of these specific responses. And the next thing we'll do is look at pool. How many times did it come up? How many times were these specific recreation opportunities? And there might be an opportunity, not to piggyback on that word, to do some micro surveys to distill that a little bit further.
I think with the pool thing too, as well, is it was kind of like the rug got pulled out of people because they were expecting Rick Life to follow through. They were seeing posts on their Facebook page, and then all of a sudden they're like, it dropped off. And everyone's like, what happened? Where's the pool we were gonna get? And I was like, I guaranteed something we wouldn't have.
Well, I think in a lot of communities, projects ebb and flow. There's a lot of excitement at the beginning, and sometimes it is difficult to keep up with the public appetite as the project kind of ebbs. So regular updates about what happened to the pool, where did it go, what's going on can be helpful. And those are easy fixes, right? I mean, nothing came out of the survey that was, oh gosh, this is insurmountable.
Actually, given where we are with this survey, do you think we could develop some micro surveys out of this information before, give us a little bit later of a snapshot before we go final
Yes, so
with our
you,
plan?
yes, and I'll work with staff and the board to determine which way you would like to do that. You can say, okay, you identified recreational activities, tell me what you want. Or you can say you identified recreational activities, you can take the top ranking survey responses, pool, skate rink, and I'm only using recreation as an example, and list those and ask people to prioritize them. So it's your ballgame.
I just think that we have an opportunity here to do some micro surveys that kind of tighten up the shot group. From this macro survey that we've just seen the numbers, and of course, that was in May, and here we are in August, and we're going to go final with our plan in September as a working document, because that's what it is. It's community, it's staff, it's the board, it's all three of us working together in this document. So that would really benefit us if we could do that,
We can work on that.
okay?
So the homework I would give you as a board and individually is, what information do you want distilled?
That's
And I will
9%,
provide
that's right.
the draft report card, so if there's something in there that's objective that you'd like to say, okay, let's ask a question about this,
When would you need that response back?
the end of the week.
Okay, board, end of the week? I mean, we want her to be final in September, so if we can send her back some information, you send that to Chancellor and then you send it to you?
Yes.
Chancellor, is that good?
Yeah.
Get a couch? Okay,
All right, thank y'all so much.
thank you, Ashley, for doing this. Do you want these back?
I would like to have those back. If anybody take notes on those?
I feel a little bit.
Is it notes you
I
want?
just
Just so
heard
you
it.
have. Okay, thank you.
Did you?
All right, thank you.
see about personnel first.
I had other notes that it was like summarize what you said, but see, Phil, no, you can see what you wanted me to know.
First set.
That was the only thing. No, I was like making notes of like issues. Okay.
Okay, I need a motion to adjourn. Second, all in favor? We are adjourned until 7.